Okay, so picture this. You dedicate your whole life to a sport, you finally reach the Olympics, and then boom, you're on the FBI's 10 most wanted list.
Yeah.
That's the wild ride we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, for sure.
The story of Ryan Wedding, Canadian snowboarder, went from the 2002 Winter Olympics to allegedly becoming the head of a huge drug trafficking operation.
Yeah.
So we've got news articles, official reports, the whole 9 yards.
It's going to be a deep dive.
So our mission today is to try to figure out how this Olympian went down such a crazy path.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, and the sources you've got paint a fascinating picture, albeit a disturbing one, but, fascinating nonetheless.
Okay.
So let's start at the beginning with Wedding's time at the Olympics.
Okay.
He competed in the men's parallel giant slalom in Salt Lake City and ended up getting 24th place.
Wow.
Not a medal.
Not a medal.
But still, to get to the Olympics, that's a huge achievement.
Right.
So you've got to wonder, at that point in his life, did anyone have any idea what he was going to allegedly get up to?
Yeah, and looking at his life right after the Olympics, it's pretty normal, right?
Yeah, totally.
He enrolled at Simon Fraser University
Mm-hmm.
and even got a part-time job as a bouncer.
Yeah.
Which you mentioned could be like an early connection to the criminal world.
Potentially, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, what kinds of things would a bouncer see or experience that might lead them down that road?
Well, think about it. Being a bouncer, you see the underbelly of nightlife,
Right.
which, sometimes has some criminal activity going on.
Right.
You're dealing with big crowds. Sometimes people get out of hand, and you're probably meeting people who are involved in some shady stuff.
Yeah.
It's not a direct path to drug trafficking or anything like that, but,
Right.
it could be a glimpse into that world, and you might make some connections there.
Yeah, it's like a foot in the door, even if it wasn't intentional. Right.
Right.
Okay, so then in 2004, things get a little more serious.
Yeah.
The sources mention a police investigation into a marijuana grow-up that was allegedly connected to Wedding. Mm-hmm.
Now, he wasn't actually charged with anything,
Right.
but this seems like a pretty big red flag.
Definitely.
Do we know anything about how big this operation was? Like, was it just a little personal grow, or was it something more organized?
That's a good question. And unfortunately, the sources you've got don't give us many details.
Okay.
It's possible that it was pretty small, maybe even just for his own use.
Right.
But the fact that the police were looking into him for something like this,
Yeah.
it suggests that he was already getting involved with some illegal activities.
Right, yeah.
Makes you wonder if this was just a one-time thing or if it was a sign of things to come.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then if we fast forward to 2008, things escalate even further.
Oh, yeah.
Wedding is arrested and convicted for trying to buy cocaine from an undercover agent.
Yeah.
This seems like a big turning point, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So how often do you see someone who's growing marijuana move on to harder drugs like cocaine? It's actually not that uncommon for people in the drug trade to move from marijuana to harder stuff.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of reasons why.
Yeah.
You can make more money, you meet new people in your network, and sometimes personal use turns into something bigger.
Right. Yeah.
And in Wedding's case, this conviction definitely shows he was getting more involved in the criminal world.
So we've got an Olympic athlete who, just a few years after competing, gets convicted of a drug offense.
Right.
What a fall from grace, right?
Yeah.
What happened after his prison sentence? Did he clean up his act or did things get even worse?
That's where things get really interesting and a lot darker.
Okay.
Because in 2024, just a few years ago, Wedding is indicted
Okay.
as the alleged leader of this massive drug trafficking ring.
Wow.
We're talking hundreds of kilos, sometimes even tons of cocaine, moving from Colombia through Mexico to the U.S. and Canada.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We went from bouncer and maybe a small-time marijuana grower to a huge international drug kingpin.
I know, right?
This is crazy. How does someone even make that jump?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to really figure that out, we need to look deeper into the world of drug trafficking and organized crime.
Okay.
Because moving tons of cocaine across different continents
Right.
takes a crazy amount of organization,
Yeah.
connections, and you got to be ruthless to pull it off.
Yeah.
It's almost like running a huge company, but in the shadows.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's pretty intense.
it is, yeah.
Okay, so let's
break that down a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking about this huge operation moving tons of cocaine across borders.
Yeah.
Help me understand this. Like, how do you even do that? How do you
Huh.
move that much cocaine from one country to another without getting caught?
Well, it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
It's like a machine with a lot of different moving parts, you know?
Right.
So first, you got to have a good source for the cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that's from producers down South America.
And then you need a way to get it from there to other countries.
Right.
That could be through cargo ships or private planes. Sometimes they even hide it in secret compartments in vehicles.
Wow.
And you've got stash houses along the way, people moving and guarding the drugs.
Right.
And then, of course, you need a network to sell it once it gets to where it's going.
It's like its own little world.
It is,
with its own infrastructure.
Yeah, it takes a lot of coordination. You got to trust the people you're working with.
Yeah.
And a ton of money to make it all happen.
It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about all the planning and people involved.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not just about moving the drugs around, right?
Right.
There's a really dark side to all of this.
Absolutely.
We can't forget that Wedding is accused of ordering people to be killed.
That's right. The indictment alleges that violence was a part of how this organization did business.
Yeah.
And sadly, that Canadian couple that was murdered because they were mistaken for someone else.
Right.
That's not the only case. There's another murder connected to a drug debt.
Right.
And officials think that Wedding's organization was behind some other shootings in the Toronto area, too.
It just shows you that this isn't some victimless crime.
Nope.
There are real people getting hurt because of this illegal drug trade.
Yeah, definitely.
And the violence is scary.
Yeah, it is.
Of course, we got to remember that these are just accusations at this point.
Right.
And Wedding is innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
But it's the evidence that led to him being on the FBI's most wanted list.
Right, and that's what we need to look at.
Right.
What exactly links Wedding to these crimes?
Well, the indictment itself probably has things like testimonies from people who used to work with him.
Yeah.
Maybe they made a deal with the government to get a lighter sentence in exchange for information.
Right.
There's got to be financial records showing where the money was going.
Yeah.
Maybe bank accounts or property linked to Wedding and the drug operation.
Yeah, it's all about following the money.
And then there could be intercepted communications, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like phone calls, emails, even secret messages
Right.
that prove he was involved.
Definitely.
And don't forget about any physical evidence.
Oh, right, of course.
Maybe they found drugs or guns that are connected to him or his organization.
It's like a puzzle, putting all those pieces together.
Yeah, and speaking of key pieces,
Yeah,
there's Andrew Clark,
right.
Wedding's alleged second-in-command,
Yeah, it's right-hand man.
who was arrested in Mexico and then sent back to the U.S.
Yeah.
to face similar charges.
Right.
He could be a big help to the prosecution, right?
Absolutely. So someone like Clark was probably really close to the operation.
Yeah.
He would know all the details, the people involved, how everything worked.
Right.
If he talks to the authorities, it could really hurt Wedding's case.
Okay.
But even with someone like that cooperating,
Yeah.
it's still a legal battle.
Right.
The prosecution has to build a really strong case to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Wedding is guilty.
It's pretty wild to think that someone could be accused of doing all of this.
It is.
Like, we're talking about someone who is in the Olympics,
Yeah.
representing their country on this huge stage.
Right.
And now he's accused of running a big criminal organization.
A huge fall from grace.
What could make someone change their life so drastically?
That's the question everyone's asking, from
Yeah.
the investigators to his old teammates and friends.
Right.
And there's no easy answer. It's probably a bunch of different things that led to this.
All right.
We've talked about him growing marijuana and then getting convicted for trying to buy cocaine, which shows he was getting more and more comfortable with the criminal world.
Yeah.
But there could be other reasons, too.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, running a drug trafficking operation is like running a business, even if it's illegal.
Right.
Maybe it was that same ambition and drive that made him successful as an athlete
Right.
that also pushed him towards this criminal stuff.
So like a messed up kind of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, maybe Wedding just liked taking risks, needed to be in control,
Yeah.
wanted power and money, and that led him down this dark path.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible that the same things that made him a good athlete got twisted and turned into something bad.
Right.
But there could be other psychological stuff going on, too,
Okay.
that we need to consider.
So you're saying there might be like a psychological profile that fits people who end up as leaders in organized crime?
Well, there's no perfect formula, of course.
Right.
But yeah, criminal psychologists have found some common traits
Oh.
in people who rise to power in the criminal world.
Okay, like what?
You often see charisma. They're smart. They're not afraid to take risks. They don't really have empathy for others.
Right.
And their sense of right and wrong is pretty messed up.
Yeah, so not your typical Olympian.
Right.
It's almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, you know?
Yeah, kind of.
So even if we think we understand what might be going on in his head,
Yeah.
there's still the big question of what happens now. Where do things go from here in the Ryan Wedding case?
Well, right now they're just waiting.
Okay.
The FBI, along with the Canadians and Mexicans, are all trying to find him.
Okay.
They've got that $10 million reward out there, which is a lot of money, so someone might be tempted to talk.
Right.
They're also using everything they can to track him down.
Yeah.
Surveillance, gathering information,
Right.
probably even using informants in the criminal world.
It sounds like it's a really hard case.
It is. It's not easy.
You mentioned that they're working with other countries.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges they face trying to catch someone who might be moving between countries, especially if they're connected to powerful criminals?
Well, you've got different laws in each country,
Right.
different legal systems, language barriers,
Right.
and sometimes it's hard to get different law enforcement agencies to work together.
Right.
And then you add in the possibility of a group like the Sinaloa cartel being involved.
Yeah.
And it gets even more complicated and dangerous.
Yeah.
These cartels, they have so much power,
Yeah.
money, influence, and they're known for being violent.
It makes you realize just how big of a deal this case really is.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so let's say they actually catch Wedding.
Okay.
What happens then?
If they catch him, he'll be sent back to the U.S. for trial.
Okay.
He would have a lawyer, of course.
Right.
And he's innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But the charges against him are serious.
Yeah.
And he could face some serious consequences.
Yeah.
This would be a huge case.
Can you imagine the media attention a trial like this would get?
Oh, yeah.
A former Olympian, now accused of being this big-time drug lord.
It would be huge.
It would be pretty interesting to see how it all plays out.
It would.
How the prosecution tries to prove their case,
Yeah.
what kind of evidence they have,
Yeah.
and how the defense tries to fight back.
It would be a legal battle for sure.
And this case could actually change some legal stuff too, right?
Oh, yeah, potentially.
Like figuring out how to prove someone's involved in these international criminal organizations.
Yeah. It's
Using evidence from other countries.
Right.
And making sure the accused person's rights are protected while also getting justice for the victims.
The tough balance.
It really makes you think, you know? This story is so much bigger than just what we see in the headlines.
It is.
It makes you think about power, greed,
Yeah.
this whole world of organized crime that's hidden from most people, and the real people whose lives are destroyed because of the drug trade.
You're right. It's a reminder that these things are happening even if we don't see them.
And then there's Ryan Wedding himself.
Yeah.
We still don't really know what made him go down this path.
Right.
Did he slowly get pulled into this dark world?
Yeah.
Or did he make a conscious choice at some point?
That's the question.
Was there like a point of no return for him?
It's hard to say.
It's hard to know for sure.
We might never really understand what was going on in his head. But by looking at all the details of this case, you know,
Yeah.
the accusations, the evidence, the whole drug trade situation,
Yeah,
and the psychology of it all,
right.
we get a better understanding of what can shape a person's life.
Right.
And maybe even more importantly,
Yeah.
it makes us think about our own values, the choices we make,
Right.
and the paths we take in life.
It's a pretty heavy topic to end on, but it's definitely been a fascinating deep dive.
It has, yeah.
The Ryan Wedding case is a story that's still unfolding.
It is.
And while we wait to see what happens next,
Yeah.
we're left with this question.
Okay.
What would it take for any of us to go so far off track?
Yeah,
It's a tough question to think about,
it is.
but it's something we should all consider, even if we hope we'll never be in that situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.